Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate it. Shout out to all the subscribers as always. Thank you very much to anybody new locked in. Gratitude to you. So Liam Paro pulls out a historic, sensational performance and defeats the boogeyman Subriel Matias in a virtuoso performance in Puerto Rico last night. It's Paro time.
It's Paro time!
Boxing.
Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Wow, what a performance from Liam Paro last night. That really was magnificent, and you know, he proved me wrong, and I'm pleased for that, because I'm pleased for him, because the storyline of him, I know he had a friend that passed away and he wanted to win a world title for him. I don't know if everybody knew that, but that was a big part of the story going in, at least, you know, from Paro's camp. He spoke about it pre-fight. He mentioned it. I'll pull up some clips as well if I can find them. And
man, it's meant to be, you know what I mean? I think this fight is meant to happen. I think this is how I'm meant to win the title. I'm meant to do this in this fashion, you know. And like I said, I know the task ahead of me. I know it ain't going to be easy, but
what beautiful way to honor your words of a deceased friend. You know, he really did it. He went there, he really did it, and he put on a great performance. Let's talk about the fight, because there's a lot to digest here. First of all, I think the right man won. I think Paro did win. Watching it live, and thanks to anybody that joined me last night on that live stream, that was a lot of fun. So I was watching it. I was going to say it was a lot for me to watch the fight, sort of score it, comment on it, talk about comments. So I watched a bit of that back, and as I'm talking, you know, watching it back, I might have got a couple of things wrong as I'm commentating, because I was surprised when Chris Mannix had Matias 3-1 up whilst watching it live, but when watching it back, I was like, no, he got that bang on. I think Subriel probably won the third. At a stretch, it would be 2-2, but I think Paro arguably could have been 5-1 up, 4-1 up. But the tide did turn in either the fourth or the fifth. Probably the fifth and sixth, Subriel Matias had quite big rounds, and you could see, I'll put up the clip where Paro walked to the corner.
Come on, brother. Dig deep. Come on there. Dig deep. Come on, bro. We can do it. Breathe to me. Breathe to me. Control your breathing. We're fucking way ahead on the cards, guaranteed.
And that took a lot out of him, and he put his hands on the ropes like that, and his trainers are geeing him up, and he looked a bit like dejected, strong, a bit anxious, whatever you want to call it. It's in the realm of like, oh boy. And that's when I was like, okay, this is going in that direction where Matias is going to break him down and get the stoppage late-ish. But this is what I'm so enamored by Paro's performance, because when you can find another gear and catch a second wind, make those adjustments, weather the storm. I mean, that's one hell of a storm to weather too. When you've got Matias, who wasn't, you know, particularly as killer as we're used to seeing, but a part of that was Paro. And I think, actually, to be honest, Paro's defense needs to be spoken about. That was exceptional. His game plan was exceptional. His ability to control his punches, right? And not throw, he was throwing 60% power, sometimes 50%, just nice, tidy shots like that. The whole fight, that was part of the strategy, so he conserved his energy. And it was a beautiful game plan. Constantly turning in with that right hook that I spoke about in the film study, but he landed so many more shots. That sneaky left uppercut was a big punch for Paro. Matias walking him down was blocking a lot of shots, but because he was getting tagged with that uppercut or straight shots, so there was no head movement. Matias was just walking it down a little bit pedestrianly, or pedestrian, whatever the correct word is. And Paro was finding a home, but there were a tremendous amount of shots getting landed on the gloves. But at the same time, Matias wasn't really connecting that many times on Paro due to his defense. He was just a little bit cuter, you know, well, a lot cuter on the ropes, using a bit of depth perception where he was pulling back like that, smothering him. Paro, now the biggest mystery for me, and maybe you guys can fill me in, is what happened to Matias's clinch game. Was it neutralized by Paro, or did he just simply not try hard enough to fight in the clinches? Because where was that ferocity that he fought Ponce in the clinches, right? Where he was just like throwing like a savage amount of a barrage of punches. It happened a little bit, don't get me wrong. There were a couple of rounds where it burst out. I think it was at the end of the 5th or 6th, those rounds where I mentioned where, you know, Paro got to the corner and he was like, man, was that taking a lot out of Matias? I know he put a lot of pressure on himself. These homecomings are somewhat of a curse, people say. If you look about the previous homecomings, just recently, obviously this one last night, Regis Prograis in New Orleans. Danny Garcia had some issues with Mauricio Herrera, I remember, back in, I don't know what date, 2014 or something like that. I don't know, roughly around there. And fighters talk about, you know, the amount of pressure. You know, you want to get the knockout, and there was a lot of talk about other fighters in the lead up to this. Regis Prograis beef, a little bit of the Eddie Hearn friction. There was talks about bigger fights, this and that and the other. Even I brought a video up saying, you know, big fights after Paro. This was before that. This was a few weeks ago. You know, perhaps and I underestimated Liam Paro. And this channel is about getting the best version of yourself, being spirited, having skills, and showing a lot of heart, and he embodied that, and I'm grateful as a boxing fan to witness that, because I'm not about to be shying away from getting a pick wrong. It is what it is, and it's a tremendous win for him. That is a historic night, and the fact that he did it, and the fact he did it in such a manner, and the fact he did it, well, he said it was the toughest fight of his life, to be honest with you. I said it at the end. He also mentioned about fighting Ryan Garcia. We're going to get onto who he's going to fight next, but let's go back to Matias on, you know, what he could have done more of, or what went wrong, really, because obviously he was having a lot of trouble with the boxing ability, and I was saying there's not been not people that have actually come in and tried to box him like that. I think the last person was Hawkins, but he wasn't as fleet-footed and as prepared, it didn't seem. The preparation that they put in for this camp mentally, Paro is, and I was saying this, I've got so much respect for him, even more now, but even before the fight, for taking the fight, for having the mental fortitude, for having that was one of his strongest assets, his mind. And my gosh, did he double down on that and just stick to the game plan with those 60-70% punches. So, you know, I was just wanting to maybe put some steam on the shots, but actually in the pre-fight I was like, no, maybe don't try to even hurt him, don't try to knock him out. I did say that in the keys to victory, but you know, it is what it is. I think they didn't. I think they were just going to finesse him, finesse the beast, and that's what they did in a magnificent performance. Keeping that up, I just didn't think he could keep it up. That was my biggest question. And when the 6th round came in and the 7th round, I was like, man, they're not going to be able to keep this up. Look at Paro's face. Looks dejected. But he did. And he proved me wrong. He proved a lot of people wrong. And salute to him and his team. They deserve all the credit in the world. He's the king of the world right now. He's got the belts that are going to go him back to Australia. And he's got a lot of options over there. But back to Matias. You know, people were saying it wasn't the same ferocious. You know, there was a lot of distractions, as I said, you know, complacency, all this thing, the pressure from the expectations of, you know, just get the knockout, that kind of thing. You know, I didn't really give Paro much of a chance, I'll be honest. I didn't. When you look at the actual data, right, he got dropped by Alamo, Puerto Rican fighter, which, you know, they suppressed that footage, which we found. And it was from a jab. And I thought Matias' jab would be more impactful, but it wasn't. Paro's defense was on point, keeping him at bay a little bit, moving around constantly, moving. Upper body movement was great from Paro. But then he got dropped by another fighter, right? A C-level fighter. No disrespect. So you're getting dropped twice by these guys. That's pretty good data to suggest that maybe he's not going to take Matias' punches. And he didn't at times get landed with the cleanest shots, but he was shelling up, which is something I said don't do, but he did it up like right in front, getting pinged with a few short uppercuts, but took them well. Tremendous performance from Liam Paro. Honestly, he is just shaking that division up so much. And as a boxing fan, I love to see it. I really do. And what does Matias do from here in terms of the L? Okay. an L's an L. It's how you come back from an L. He's already come back from an L dramatically, and that was actually, you know, put him onto the pinnacle of his career, really, up to date. So what's he going to do from now after this L? That's the true definition of a fighter, in my opinion. And somebody like with the character of Matias, I know he said he was humiliated after. I'm sure it's a very dejecting feeling, you know, having your fans there come to see you, and it's your moment. And, you know, you probably feel like you let everybody down. You didn't fight the fight you did. And it was what it was, you know. But where he goes, Eddie Hearn was mentioning that he could have a fight in November back in Puerto Rico. You know, I think the matchmaking will be very, very, very important in terms of who not to put him in against. And obviously a mover and some. It's like you can have movers in there. It's just having that capacity to hang in there and find another gear, which is what Paro did, which was his mental toughness. Now, if you've got fighters that can outmaneuver you for a little bit, that's fine. But then what happens when the going gets tough? And that was the biggest question for me. And Paro passed it with flying colours. He really did, you know. And then he looked like he was really cruising in the 11th, I think, you know. And it's just like the right man won. I think if you're gonna be, you know, honest, I think 6 rounds for Matias would be a lot. I think 4 or 5 was probably accurate. Maybe 5, I think I probably gave him. But, you know, even then, it doesn't matter. The right man won, I think. And shout out to Liam Paro and his team. Amazing victory, amazing performance, execution all the way. They didn't get greedy. Yeah, he kind of locked horns a little bit early with him, which I was like, man, that's a really bad thing to do. But he was able to sort of hang in the pocket. And Matias didn't do the clinch game or didn't let his hands go as much as I thought he could enough. There were some moments where he did, like I said, but it was a bit head scratching, you know. Because Matias against Ergashev was showing a bit more upper body movement with his hands up like that, and a bit more fluid, a bit more. He was a bit more rigid in this fight, and a bit more stationary, a bit more pedestrian. Lack of creativity, a lack of intensity, ferocity. You know, it was a lot to kind of look at from thinking where was these other things. You got to give Paro credit as well, though, because he definitely neutralized some of those things I'm talking about from his superior defense and his footwork, craftiness, sneaky little punches, ability to be a bit stronger in the pocket than I think people thought. And actually, I was watching a Coach Mario video before the fight, about 2 hours before, and he made me even think that I'd gone too late on my prediction, because he brought up, you know, the same things where we're like, well, Paro's been dropped by this. How's he going to handle Matias in the clinches? And I thought to myself, and I might have said it on the live before, I was like, don't be surprised if Paro's a bit stronger in the clinches than we think, because he's gotten stronger. He's been in the gym. He's a consummate professional, and he's shown in the Jarvis fight and in other fights that he can actually fight in the clinches. But obviously those guys aren't Matias, so it was hard to gauge exactly how good he is in there. But I was like, don't be surprised if he's actually a bit better in there. But I don't know if it was just him being better or Matias not committing to it. It was a really weird dynamic for me, because I thought that would be the key moment where Matias could excel. But perhaps Paro was just strong enough in there that neutralized it somehow. You know, I watched the fight back once and the highlights again, so maybe I'll watch it again. But, you know, at the end of the day, you cannot take away from what a sensational performance and what a great kid Liam Paro is. And, you know, I'm generally happy for him, because to have a victory like that in the circumstances that he had it under, going to Puerto Rico with the pressure of the words he had for his deceased friend, like, wow. It's Paro time. And, you know, shout out to the trolls that were bombarding my live stream last night and were like, you know, so worried about gloating on their own decision without any analysis to try to put people down. I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about people that these trolls are online are forgetting the fact that their countrymen have just pulled off a historic performance, and so concerned about putting someone else down off the back of a non-analytical gloating. You're the biggest losers, unfortunately. That's a big L to take. Matias can take this. It's how he comes back from it. I doubt you guys can come back from yours. But, you know, I wish you more luck than him because you're going to need it. But shout out to everybody on the live stream last night. I really appreciate it. You know, we had a good chat, and you know, I'm grateful for people that passed through. I was on there for a long time, and hopefully it made sense when I was doing it. It was the first time I tried to commentate on, you know, a card. I had like I didn't have the Tank fight up, but before that I had the Benavidez fight. So it was a lot to deal with. But I'll try to, you know, get some improvements on that for sure, and get a bit of a prepared show, and we'll try and build it. But, you know, very grateful for everybody. Very grateful for Liam Paro and his performance to show that in a sport that I love so much, that what us boxing fans love so much because of moments like this. Shout out to the Australians locked in, and shout out to the Puerto Ricans. And, you know, you live to fight another day. And Subriel Matias has got to go back to the drawing board. And as I said, the true hallmark of a fighter is what do they do when they come back from a loss? And I think he'll be all right. He's just got to, you know, work on a few things. And stylistically, that was a bad matchup. But at the end of the day, Paro did what he had to do in tremendous fashion. And they really, the preparation that they put in allowed them to get the victory as they did. Not just the execution in the fight, but the build-up, all of it. His constant profession and his dedication to the sport, and his mental fortitude and his self-belief, which is a lot part of this channel, which is why I'm truly excited for him, because it embodies everything that I talk about, even if I got the pick wrong. But that's it, I'm out. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it, as always. I just forgot to mention about who they can fight next really quickly. You know, Paro mentioned Ryan Garcia in Australia. You know, that's a massive fight. Obviously, Garcia's got some issues going on right now. Before that gets cleared up, I don't even know if he can get down to 140. They'd have to put some serious contract stipulations on that. I quite like the Devin Haney fight for both guys. I think Devin Haney, you know, was scheduled to fight Sander Martin, who's, you know, a similar fighter to Paro, at least the way Paro fought last night. You certainly wouldn't want to put Matias in with Sander Martin either. You know, tricky back foot fight. Well, Paro showed a lot more wrinkles than I knew he had, but, you know, back foot fighters that can box cleverly with, you know, good movement and spoiler lateral movement, check hooks. That right check hook as well, Sander Martin's got that. That's not a fight for Matias. But in terms of Liam Paro, I don't particularly like the Richardson-Hitchens fight or the Jack Catchell fight, just because they're kind of spoilers. They can be real spoilers. And I think going back to Australia, I think you should match him up with someone where they can get like a real good buzz, a better name, or just a better fight, you know. So I think the Haney fight's a winnable fight. I do, based off of that, the way he's able to box like that for 12 rounds and come through the storm, that'll just make a good fight either way, you know. But, you know, there are fights out there at 140 for Paro, and he deserves whatever he wants. In terms of Subriel Matias, I actually still do like the Regis Prograis fight. Now, Sergio Moro was saying that would be a nightmare for him, but Regis can't move the way that Paro can. I know he's a southpaw, but would you really think Regis would be on the back foot like that? I don't think I've ever seen him do that. I know Regis's defense can be very good when he's using it, but that would be an interesting fight. There's obviously beef there as well, but it's also a risky fight, because I do understand the southpaw element, and I do understand the skill element that Regis brings to the table, because Regis isn't just going to go there and start, you know, going toe-to-toe with Matias. That's suicide. But I don't know. I'd have to sit back. I just got this one really wrong, so I'm not going to make a prediction just yet before I look at a few more film. But yeah, that's it. I wanted to throw that in there. Now I'm really out. Thank you.
It's Paro time!
Boxing.
On it.